Welcome.
Hi.
Oh. Where's the camera? Okay, start video. Hello. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We're going to be muting everybody on here, and then afterwards we'll have some Q&A. So I'm going to do that now.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. Hi, Sky. Yay.
That was great timing.
It was. I need one of those. I need one of those side.
Should have gone to the rest.
Introducing Golden State Republican Women President Janet Price.
Good morning, everybody. And I just welcome you, everyone from Golden State Republican Women, family, friends, everyone on this Zoom, because everyone was invited. And I want to especially thank you, since we're on the West Coast, for getting up early, because we have never had a morning Zoom like this, but this is so well worth it. You will be so glad that you did. So I am grateful for you for joining us with this very special event. And you will find the time well worth your while. We've got great guests. I've got a great team. I want to thank my team who helped put this together. We'll start with our webmaster, Sherry Gillis, whom we all know and love, as she puts these together so well. And so we appreciate her. And Kaylee Komatsu does our publicity. We're grateful for her. Nancy Wofford, third vice president of political policies and political activities. We are grateful for you, Nancy, and Karen Contreras. And Karen is going to be our co-host this morning with Nancy. And Karen is second vice president, membership. So we have a lot of exciting things also in the future with these Zooms that I know Nancy and Karen will tell you about. But I'm excited to get this morning going. So I will turn this over now to Karen Contreras, who will host this morning and introduce our guests. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. Thank you, Janet. So welcome, everyone. We're so happy that you joined us this morning. Boy, I tell you, it's not often that we have an opportunity to connect with the presidential candidates campaign team. And we are just so delighted that they have made time to speak with us today. Before we begin, let's go over a few housekeeping rules. Sometimes you don't realize that distractions in the background create just chaos for everybody else. So please mute your microphones. And I think, Sherry, you've turned off everyone. Is that correct? All right. And this is for the entire Zoom presentation. Please use the chat box at the bottom of your Zoom screen for all questions, and we will do our very best to answer every one of them before we end today. If your video is on and you need to leave the room or go pick up something or do something, please just click on the video icon and turn it off. And then when you come back, click it and turn it back on. All of those will help us greatly. Thank you for observing that little bit of etiquette there. Now, interestingly enough, when I got the bios on our speakers today, I was so impressed, not only with the fact that they are young, they are active, they're energetic, but the breadth of their professional background is just incredible. So what I would like to do is go into those bios, but as I'm reading my notes here, I realize there's one thing I need to remind you of, and that is that on March 12th, Kimberly Fletcher, who is the president for Moms for America, is going to be on our Zoom presentation, and you will not want to miss that. Please look in your emails for that notice and click on the GSRW.com website to please sign up. So, all right, moving forward. Our speakers this morning are hardworking on the Trump campaign, and they have diverse roles, and you're going to hear from them on that. But the product of their collaboration is absolute success, as you are seeing on the media. So Derek Silver, who grew up in Winter Park, Florida, and majored in political science, was working on the DeSantis team as an outreach coordinator, so to speak, to the Jewish community. He had such success with Derek's connections there that he won by an incredible percentage of the Jewish vote. So then President Trump noticed this and said, you know what? I can use a man like this. So he reached out to Derek. Derek joined the team. And in 2016, Trump received 41% of Florida's Jewish vote. That was a 50% jump over the that was in 2020, excuse me, a 50% jump over the 2016 result. And it was more than double of his other opponents. So Derek has a proven track record, and you just can't beat that. So Trump was very smart in doing that. Now, the other thing that I want to say about this is that the Jewish community typically has voted Democrat, and it's vitally important that we remember to reach out to them. Regardless of where you're at in this, it's very important that we bring them in and show them our message. Evelyn Nunez-Jones is a political influencer who has raised thousands of dollars for President Trump. She has just been the mover and shaker in California, and I'm anxious to hear more about what she is doing. Grace Dunlap is a political coordinator with the 2024 Trump campaign, originally from West Central Missouri, just south of Kansas City. She attended Kansas State University, where she graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree in agronomy. Oh, you go, girl. That's great. And while attending the Iowa State Fair with friends, Grace ran into members of Trump's campaign team and inquired about their efforts and opportunities. She began volunteering with the campaign in late September of last year, 2023, and was offered a full-time position with the campaign in early November. That shows that Trump is out there looking for young, energetic people to help move his campaign along and appeal to the younger voter. And now, please welcome our guests, Derek Silver, Evelyn Nunez-Jones, and Grace Dunlap. So thank you so much for being on. We want to hear more about you, but we also want to know what you're doing in the campaign. So Derek, if you could start this off and just let us know a little bit about your role, and then Evelyn, yours, and Grace, yours. And then Derek, if you would just kind of take over the discussion on what you are doing and how you collaborate with these other two women.
Sure. Well, first off, thanks for having me. My name is Derek Silver. I am the National Coalitions Director for President Trump's campaign. So basically what that is, I break it down into two categories. It is finding groups of Republican voters, that we want to make sure we turn out, especially in our battleground states. And the second thing is finding groups of what I call non-traditional Republican voters and persuading them to vote for us, right? So Karen kind of brought up, the Jewish vote a little bit, right? Jews as a voting bloc tend to lean more liberal, right? So, my background, the last two cycles was figuring out how to get a group of non-traditional Republican voters, as I call them, to, vote for us. Because, again, we have a great candidate with a great record and a great message. And so that's kind of, my focus. And yeah, I'll hand it off to the other two.
All right, Evelyn.
Well, I'm Evelyn Jones, and a lot of you guys here in California know me as Sky Jones. And I always love fundraising. I went to Cal State Long Beach, and I was a corporate fundraiser for an association there, two associations. So that is, a gift that I had. I've surpassed that gift by helping President Trump. I raised over $100,000 in 2020, and I'm probably 250 total now. For him. So it's an honor to be doing that for President Trump.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for your efforts here in California. We know how hard it is going uphill. And Grace, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Grace Dunlap. Thank you all for having me on today. I am a political coordinator with the Trump campaign. So when I started out volunteering, as Karen had mentioned. And since I came on full time, I've helped with a variety of things, mainly with assisting with phone banking, getting people's accounts set up, making sure that everyone has the information in regards to knowing how to use the platform, the information in regards to what's going on in that state, whether it's a caucus or primary. Details for that. I've also helped with Trump caucus captain recruiting. So we did that here in Iowa for the caucus. And then a lot of out of state and in-state phone banking things, and then just whatever else people need help with around the office. So kind of a catch-all in my position.
That's great. That's great. So I think this morning our audience would really appreciate kind of finding out the inner workings of the Trump campaign. And so, Derek, if you could kind of talk to us about how it's going from your perspective, what's going on, tell us a little bit about your boss and Mar-a-Lago and just everything Trump.
Yeah, I mean, so I would just say this, I think I'll just stick to what I think makes our team special, right? Which, and the word I would just describe is collaboration, right? It's an atmosphere where everybody shares the same goal, everybody works well together. Many of us have worked together for many, many years. And so that just creates an atmosphere of success where, people really get along, and we have a great product, and we're able to give the president the service he deserves,
Mm-hmm. Okay. And if you have to think about President Trump and how he not only interacts with the team, but also on the ground as he is going from state to state, can you give us a little bit of insight on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I would just say he's tireless when it comes to, fighting for what he believes in and campaigning for what he believes in. I mean, you guys saw the news coverage about Iowa where it was, below 0 degrees, and he was still there campaigning. It doesn't matter, rain or shine, he's going to be there. He's going to campaign. He's not afraid. He meets with voters. I mean, if you follow the news, you'll see that he sometimes has been in several time zones in a 2-day span to make sure that he campaigns, and reaches voters and thanks the people who, have been supporting him. And so, yeah, I mean, I would say his work ethic is tireless.
Mm-hmm. And Grace or Evelyn, can you add to that?
I met President Trump here in Beverly Hills in California. And, he went to the convention to speak to all the delegates. I'm a delegate as well. I was there 6 o'clock in the morning, and, there was so excitement from everyone waiting for him. But President Trump got there to the convention. Then he left to the ice cream store where he was waiting for so many people. Then he went to the fundraiser in Beverly Hills. It was like a long night. And then the next day we had Costa Mesa fundraiser. And by the end of the convention, I was beat. And I said, oh my gosh, how does this man do it? He has so much energy and he has a heart, you know, for our country. I was at a round table with him and I felt him, you know, his heart. He really cares. He really wants to go back where he belongs to help our nation. And he is not going to give in. He is somebody that has the energy of 20 of us.
Yeah. And you, Grace, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I can add to that. Derek mentioned like the really cold weather that we were having in Iowa that week/weekend leading up to the Iowa caucus. And we had like 4 rallies planned for that weekend. And due to like road conditions and all of that, they had canceled all of them but one. But he still made an effort to have like a meeting with Attorney General Brenna Bird and had like a lot of like our volunteers attend that. They had an event the next morning at Hotel Fort Des Moines because I think that, you know, people were obviously disappointed in regards to not being able to attend, but I know that like he still wanted to like have time like with Iowans. And I think also like something that speaks to like his energy and like his care for the American people is like the people showing up. So like at the Indianola event that we had Sunday, January 14th, it was, I don't remember the exact temperature, but it was freezing outside and there were people outside waiting first thing in the morning, waiting to get into that event to hear from him. And so I think like that speaks to it too, that like people are willing to like go out in those kind of conditions just because like they care about their country and they know that he cares about his country. So yeah, and we traveled from Iowa that night. I mean, he went and spoke at the watch party and thanked everyone for their hard work in Iowa. Went to New York that night, going into the next morning, had court, and then was in New Hampshire doing a rally, being present with the people in New Hampshire. And so, yeah, I think that like he cares and it shows.
So, Derek, tell us a little bit about how the campaign is rolling out.
I mean, look, I'd say we're rolling out full steam ahead to victory, right? You saw the historic margins for Iowa. I mean, I think usually someone wins the Iowa caucuses by like 12 or 15 points. You know, we won by a solid 30 and we got over 50% of the vote. You know, you saw the same in New Hampshire. I mean, even if you, and especially if you break into New Hampshire with our victory results, you know, we got an overwhelming majority of the Republican voters, you know, that voted, right? A lot of, you know, our opponents' votes in that primary were independents that chose to vote in the primary. And, you know, I mean, look, I would say it's a effective and deliberative, right? If you look at, you know, kind of the way we have made sure to carefully message things, the way we've, you know, at least in my job as the coalitions director, a huge chunk of what I've been doing is a lot of listening. You know, because I think what you know, at least the mindset I want my department to be in is get out of the headquarters bubble, right? I think the biggest mistake national campaigns make in any sort of campaign, whether it's, you know, a Senate campaign, congressional campaign, a presidential campaign, the biggest pitfall is not listening to people on the ground, because people on the ground are going to hear things that you don't hear. You're not in all 50 states. Those people have lived in their states for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And, you know, we want to make sure that we're doing the right amount of listening so that we're capturing those issues that matter to people and that we're not, you know, stepping in it by making a mistake. I'll tell you a story in 2018 when Ron DeSantis was running against Andrew Gillum. You know, Andrew Gillum went and campaigned in a Jewish synagogue in South Florida. And perfect example of someone not doing their research. He was campaigning about, you know, obviously Jewish stuff, but then he started talking about education. And he talked about how he was going to eliminate all the school choice options in the state of Florida. You know, that's a great talking point for certain people that were backing Andrew Gillum. But what Andrew Gillum did not realize is, A, that was the largest synagogue in Broward County, and B, 60% of their operating budget came from a charter school that was attached to the synagogue. So what in essence he said to the congregation was, I'm taking your child's education away and I'm taking away the revenue for your synagogue, right? And so you avoid those types of mistakes, right, by making sure you listen to people on the ground. And that's really a lot of what we've been doing.
That's very smart. That's very smart. I think that's a huge issue with our local politicians. Evelyn, tell us what's going on in California with supporting the Trump campaign.
Well, right now we have a lot of volunteers who help Iowa, I'm sorry, and we also help New Hampshire. I've been working with Grace and we've been sending out a lot of volunteers. I'm now trying to get the different organizations that are in California to please kind of connect with her so that they can send her more volunteers so that we can organize so that after we win the primary, we're going to be super organized and ready to go. So that's what we've been doing here in California. We also been helping with the fundraising. I have about 5 other individuals, patrons that are helping me with the fundraising that are part of the fundraising team. So thank you to all of them. Many of them are here. So, we're so grateful that so many people love President Trump. First-time donors, you ask someone if they want to go to Mar-a-Lago and their eyes just brighten, they want to go and support President Trump. And I have people that donated 1,000, 3,300, 23,000, 11,000, people are just so upset at what's happening, in our state and our country. California right now is suffering from so many things. Right now, I have a friend who's at the border in San Isidro. They're doing the convoy, and she had a daughter that passed away from fentanyl. And fentanyl is hitting California. People are being affected by fentanyl. So what's happening in California? We're fighting. We're going out there today. I wish I could be there. Many of my friends are in San Isidro. So we are just trying to make sure that we stay active and help in every way that we can with parental rights, but in helping with the president calls and making sure that we get those people to Mar-a-Lago.
Yes, that's a great plan. Thank you, Evelyn. Grace, tell us a little bit about your efforts and how that all works. How do you coordinate this throughout the county through the state, excuse me, in the country?
Yeah, absolutely. So in Iowa specifically, we had our Trump caucus captains, and so they had the role of reaching out to folks who typically did not attend caucus. So we had something that was called like a 10 for Trump list that we put together for each caucus captain, like specific to their precinct. And the goal was for them to reach out to, of the 25 people, try to get 10 of them to confirm with them and say, yes, like I do plan to caucus for President Trump, to increase the amount of people actually turning out to vote and everything. So that was one way that we were really targeting Iowa and doing like voter outreach. But another way, of course, is through phone banking and door knocking. Obviously, as we got further into the fall and then more into wintertime, door knocking is not ideal because of the weather. So we were hitting it hard with the phone banking efforts. So we had a lot of people phone banking in state. They come into the office. We use a platform called Campaign Sidekick. And I recognized a lot of the names as they were getting admitted into this meeting. And I just want to say, yes, thank you, people from Evelyn, that Evelyn has sent me. So thank you all for your help in both Iowa and New Hampshire, because I mean, time is precious and it takes time, to sit down and make the phone calls. And I mean, we have interns and stuff in the office right now making phone calls on their weekend. And, with kind of the nature of phone banking is you run into bad numbers, you run into voicemails, you run into people who hang up on you and everything. Like it's kind of just a part of the phone banking efforts, but it's worthwhile because then when you do connect with the voter, some people are more apt and like willing to have conversations about like, yeah, okay, well, if you don't support President Trump, like, why is that? This is why I personally support President Trump. And I think that's awesome because it plants seeds for people. And not everyone is open to doing that. And that's totally fine too, because, at the end of the day, like with phone banking, we want to make sure people know when they're supposed to be voting, where they're supposed to be voting. That was a big deal for the Iowa caucus because people's voting locations in the caucus differed from their typical polling locations. So we really wanted to make sure and touch base with as many Iowa voters as possible so that they showed up to the right place. Because a caucus is more like a meeting. So you have a set time that you have to be there rather than come and go whenever you please in a certain time frame. So Campaign Sidekick, it's a fairly self-explanatory platform that we use, but pretty much we give you login credentials after we sign you up, and you hop on there. It gives you a phone number that you can use, so you don't have to use your own personal cell phone number. I know sometimes people don't want, calls being traced back to themselves, so that's the nice aspect of that. And there's different features of it that allow you to call maybe multiple people at a time versus one person at a time. But ultimately, it just helps us keep track of like, okay, who's planning on supporting, who's not, things of that sort. So yeah, we'll definitely have continued efforts. We have efforts going on in Nevada and South Carolina right now. And so like I said, I know that everyone's busy. I mean, people have full-time jobs, they're raising kids, they're retired, but actively involved in their communities and with alliances and organizations and groups like this. But any amount of time that anyone is able to offer is very precious. And those phone calls go a really long way with people, more than people realize sometimes.
That's
To-
great, Grace. So I'm sorry, go ahead, Derek.
Yeah, and to Grace's, just to piggyback on what Grace says, we win because of people on the ground like you guys. Like the news stories are always like the campaign won whatever. We win because of our volunteers and our supporters. So can't overstate what she's saying there, which is thank you for all of those who've helped and all of those who will help us.
So are there plans to roll out phone campaigns here in California, Grace?
That I do not personally know the answer to yet. Maybe Derek would know the answer to that better, probably, it looks like.
So I'm gonna put this link right now in the chat. And that is to volunteer to help us in South Carolina. I got that from the guy who's running our field operation there. All you've got to do is fill that out, and he will make sure that somebody calls you and gets you plugged in on that wonderful system Grace was just describing. You'll get trained, plugged in, and basically what it is I know you guys are obviously not going to knock doors because you are all the way in California, but we will get you guys set up on that wonderful phone banking software to make calls into South Carolina. And, obviously, as we start ramping things up more, we do have a women's coalition that will start getting more active at some point, right? And obviously, this is a Republican women's group, so there will be opportunities to participate in what the coalition is doing.
Wonderful. That sounds great. So Evelyn, what part will you be playing in any of this?
Well, I will be continuing to help President Trump with the fundraising. We have 2 events coming up. One is in Nashville, Tennessee, coming up on, let's see, February 22nd. If you guys have relatives, friends in Tennessee, and you guys are members, please let the team here know, and I can help you with sending the invitation. We also have an event in South Carolina that if you like to attend, I would love to do that. I was really hoping to tell you guys about Mar-a-Lago, but Mar-a-Lago sold out 2 weeks before. Last time it was a week before. This week was 2 weeks before the event on February 16th. So I encourage everyone, if you want to go to a fundraiser, the one in Tennessee is still pretty affordable. It's $1,000. And I can send you the details. I think one of the hostess is Kid Rock. Again, asked Janet Price. I also like to thank Janet Price personally for this opportunity. I love, your new group and this organization and the name and for what Janet stands. And I think we need to support one another. And this is a way to show that we can come together and help the Trump campaign.
Definitely. Thank you so much for that.
Yes.
So, Janet, do you have a question or something a topic that you would like to ask?
Oh, I have just been soaking this up like a sponge. I'm loving hearing all this energy and all this tireless support for a president who has really been beleaguered wrongly for so many years, actually. This isn't new. It began when he came down the escalator. But I see there are questions in the chat, and I didn't want to, Nancy, step over people who have taken time to put it in the chat. Do you and Nancy want to start those?
I think so. I think that's great. So Nancy, are you on?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here. I'll start from the very top. And let's see, the first one is from Jennifer Farmer, and it says, what is the specific strategy to bring the non-traditional Republican voters into the fold to get their vote? Now, Derek, that might be yours.
Yeah, so I'd say a couple things, right? And I think there's tailored strategies, right? So number one is listening, right? Because I think a lot of these, identity groups, right, that are people have put a national brand on are nuanced, right? Like, for example, let's take the Hispanic vote, right? You look at Florida is very different from the Southwest, right? Florida has large populations of Cubans, Nicaraguans, Venezuelans, Puerto Ricans, et cetera, right? The Southwest, right, it's mostly Mexican Americans. So, Arizona, Nevada, Texas, Georgia, even, right? That's mostly Mexican Americans, right? And so the cultures are different, the issues are different, right? Like, for example, Cubans, socialism is a front and center issue for them, right? A lot of them have, family members who fled Cuba, the Castro regime, whereas, the socialism messaging might not resonate as much with, someone who's of Mexican descent, right? And so it's spending the time on the ground to listen and figure out, those nuances with those different communities, right? Because just because people speak the same language or may look similar does not mean that the issues are all the same, right? It's, same thing with, Jewish voters, right? I'll tell you, there's a couple different groups of Jewish voters, right? You've got the Orthodox Jews who are more religious. They tend to vote Republican, and they've been reliably Republican. You have the more secular Jews who are actually the majority, right? And those are your non-traditional Republican voters, right? Because they tend to you vote more on social issues, right? A lot of times Jews vote based on, guns, they vote on the issue of abortion and other things, right? That they don't tend to agree with the Republican Party's platform on, but we find ways to bring them into the fold. And the third, which is actually a growing block of Jewish voters, is actually Israeli Americans, right? Israelis who live here and have American citizenship. And part of the reason we did so well in Florida in 2020 was because there's a huge population of Israelis there. And they do vote on mostly just the Israel issue, but they're low propensity voters, right? So we had to spend time focusing on getting them out to vote. So, I mean, the key really is a lot of listening and a lot of understanding the nuances of, demographics within a coalition so that we can make sure we're tailoring our messaging appropriately, meaning that the president has a great record. All we have to do is message it correct, is make sure that we've messaged it to people who should hear it.
Thank you. Mhm.
Okay, now here we have a couple of people. Diane Reynolds, according to the statement that she wrote down, it has to do a little bit about your youth. She says, don't write off the old ones. It's nice to bring in young, but retired people somewhat more time. I'm passionate for Trump. I'm 80 years old. Ask Sky. I met her at the Vegas rally. So that was for you, Sky.
I don't think anyone
Well,
is writing off anybody. Go ahead.
No.
Well, I can tell you this, at the New Hampshire rally, there were 3 students from Asbury University. And I volunteer with external affairs, and I let Brett know, hey, there's 3 students out there, they're from Asbury, and, maybe you can help them get closer to VIP area. And their grandmother helps me make calls. I don't know if Flora White is on the call, but she and her husband always help make calls, and they support President Trump. And Brett got their address, and she sent them a little something from the campaign. And the kids were so happy, and I think that reaching out to the youth is something that is just happening naturally, because I think a lot of the youth see what's happening in our country. A lot of our youth probably in California know that everything's getting expensive, and their parents are probably saying, no, we cannot afford that. I know I tell my kids all the time now, I'm digging into my savings so much. After President Trump left office, so much bad happened. And, you know, after COVID, you know, we parents that have teenagers, first time voters, my daughter will be voting for the first time. A lot of her friends will be voting for the first time. And it's exciting to see that many of them are voting to support President Trump. I'm running for AD Central Committee, and I was at the Honda dealership, and I met this young man, and I said, "Hey, do you live near Belinda?" And he said, "Yes, I do." I said, "Well, I'm running for Central Committee. Let me show you my information." And he said, I said, "Can you please sign for me?" He said, "I'm a Republican." I said, "I am too." He goes, "I support President Trump." I said, "I do too." So I got his phone number and everything. And these are young kids. So I want to give everyone hope that a lot of young kids out there are supporting President Trump.
And I would also add too that we certainly don't write anybody off, right? Because everybody has a unique reason for why they're support. Listen, if you're a younger person and you're worried about the inflation, I mean, home ownership is a lot more out of reach than it was under President Trump, right? You can go look at the mortgage rates. You know, if you're a retiree, I'm sure you're concerned about the inflation because you don't have any more income coming in, right? You've lived off what you've saved in your 401k and what's in your pension, right? And so if everything's more expensive, you're probably making, you know, you're probably adjusting your lifestyle decisions because you don't have an income coming in, right? And so our job and our goal is to engage everybody. I mean, I know Diane, you said, you know, making sure that we should engage retired people. 100% agree. Retired people are some of the best volunteers you can get because they don't have to go to work 8 hours a day, right? And so if they want to get involved, a lot of them, you know, put in the most hours for us. So 100% agree. Anybody who wants to get engaged, we will get them engaged.
And I'll piggyback off that real quick. There were plenty of times when I was speaking with folks about whether it was being like a Trump caucus captain or just like volunteering in some sort of way. And some of them would be like, well, you know, I won't be around too much longer. And like, that's not a good mindset to have because there's things to learn from every single generation. And folks who are older, who are like at the retired stage, and like you guys have lived through time periods that like us younger generations have not experienced. So you've seen like the before and after effects of things that have happened. And like, there's wisdom in that and like things that like we can learn from that and things that you can contribute to the conversation while we're reaching out to voters. So I think that it's very crucial that we have all people involved.
Thank you guys. That was great. Now I'm going to pose one for Grace, and then we'll see if there's any other questions that.
And let Karen. I think Karen has a couple. Did you have a couple?
Yeah. I'm going to pose one for Grace, and then I'll send it back to Karen.
Wonderful.
Okay. It says recently Charlie Kirk described his belief that turning out vote by contacting high propensity voters was a mistake. That in fact, we should be turning out voters who have not been voting. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, and so kind of to like backtrack to what I was talking about in regards to the Iowa caucus, that was a big factor or like focus in regards to like what we had our Trump caucus captains doing. So the team as a whole had a way where we were creating lists of 25 people per precinct and for every precinct in the state. And that's who our Trump caucus captains were reaching out to, were folks who typically do not turn out to vote because we did want to increase or, you know, change the amount of people who were coming out to vote that normally wouldn't. So our campaign is definitely like focusing on that aspect. Of course, you want like returning voters to also be coming out, but there is focus on that, on those kinds of things. And our campaign sidekick effort that we have going on in regards to the phone banking, I mean, it's targeting all kinds of people, whether they're like typical voters or people who don't typically turn out to vote. It's not like targeting one or the other. So I do believe that the campaign is addressing that.
And one thing I would tack on to kind of what Grace said is you can kind of see that a lot of our events did that too. I mean, we put, if you look at, some of the surrogates we put in the state, we put Dr. Ben Carson through churches to go talk to people, and not just pastors who are undecided, but also to people of faith, right? And his message was get out and vote, and it worked.
and the rallies. The rallies are in both, you know, highly populated areas, and then also in very rural areas too, to reach people of all walks of life. So not everyone's having to travel to one central location where everyone typically lives in a big city. So
Mhm.
Well, thank you. Karen?
Okay, so Barbara Sloan, to everyone, when President Trump wins the California primary election on March 5th, 2024, will he receive all the delegate votes, winner take all, at the Republican convention in July 2024? Any comments on that?
Well, I'll tell you, actually, delegate stuff is kind of outside my wheelhouse, so I'm not quite sure about the answer to that. So I can get back to you
Well,
on that.
I can answer to that. I'm a delegate, and the national convention will be coming up in Wisconsin, July 15th through the 18th. And for what I understand, at least in California, each state is different. So at least in California, if President Trump gets 50+1 in terms of votes, he gets all the delegates. In California, it's a very big state. Gosh, is it 100 and I think it's 159 votes
Delegates,
for
yeah.
delegates, national delegates. So 159 of us will be traveling to Wisconsin, where they will do the actual nomination. And if some of the states have very few delegates, because you know it's according to the population, I understand. So 159 from California, he will get the nomination at that national convention. And is he gonna get it? Of course, because we're all voting for him, right? We're all gonna go out there, and that's what we're calling South Carolina, to make sure that everyone in South Carolina gets out and vote. Also Nevada, that's why they just had the Nevada rally. So, you know, they're looking at the swing states, but of course, here in California, we got to continue telling our friends to please go out and vote, get new ones. If they're independents, they need to be registered Republicans in order for them to for their vote to count in California.
Exactly.
And I can give a little bit more additional information. I keep referring back to Iowa just because that's where I've been working recently, and that is the majority of my experience so far with the campaign. But people at like the caucus volunteer to be a delegate to go forward to like their county convention. So it's different for each state, and in a primary state, it definitely differs from a caucus state. But they volunteer to be a delegate to go to the county convention. From the county convention, they have a district convention. I don't remember if there's a state convention in between that, but then those delegates then go on to like the national convention. So the delegates kind of get dwindled out as they go from level to level. And one thing that our campaign is really focusing on is making sure that those delegates who are moving forward are people who support Trump. So that way, when they do get to the national convention, they will cast their vote for him as the nominee. So that's a really big thing, is that like, I don't know exactly how it works in California, but if it is an option to where like you can volunteer yourself to be a delegate, there is like a slight cost associated with that, but in the long run, it really pays off, because obviously the more people that we have there for him, the better it's going to be. So
yes, in California, we had the CRP collecting applications last year. I know that they already been calling a few weeks ago. They started calling, but if you haven't gotten a call, do not worry. There's so many that they have to review, so just be patient. I will be attending, so it's such an honor for me to be there with, you know, at that convention with President Trump. But just if you apply in California, just be patient. You'll get a call.
Okay, we'll hold on. Grace, we're going to come back to you here in just a little bit, but I'm going to move on. And Rudy Melendez from LA, Congressional District 2, asks, what strategies are being deployed for America First candidates in down ballot races?
Good question. Thank you, Rudy, for that.
So, you know, look, I would say, you know, the president has, you know, obviously, as you've seen, the president has endorsed people who are America First. And, you know, I think that's great. You know, beyond that, I mean, I can't really speak to that because that's just kind of out, again, a little outside my wheelhouse. My job is dealing with turning out Republican voters and going after non-traditional Republican voters. But, you know, I think, you know, what you guys can see in the news, right, is that the president has been endorsing candidates that, support America first. And I think that's been great.
I got a
Great.
card in the mail. I just want to tell you that I got a postcard in the mail that had pictures of, I think, 5 candidates, and it said support America first candidates. So that's the first time I had gotten that, and that's very impressive.
It is, yes. So Grace, Liam Bowie put in the chat box that we need to sign up. We need to receive that code so that we can call. We need a computer, internet, and headset. There's a script and all of that. How can the grassroots and Golden State Republican women, of those who are interested in joining that phone banking system, how can they get involved? Who do they need to reach out to?
Yeah, so Derek put a link in there, which
Oh, he
will
did.
then submit
Okay.
that to, yeah, but I also included my email. So if anyone would like to reach out to me, like personally, they can email me. As long as I have people's first name, last name, and their email address, I can set up an account for them right away. So whichever way you would like to go about that, if you use the link or if you email me directly, either way, we can get you set up with that and get you the information.
Okay, excellent. Barbara Sloan says Sacramento County Republican Party has phone banking for Trump already set up. She says our office has been calling for Trump in 2022. So it looks like you've got all places in California covered. Let's see here. Okay, I see the link to volunteer. How do we contact Derek and Grace? That is already there. Let's see if we've got a question here. We have a lot of comments.
Comments. Yeah.
Just a reminder for those that already been calling, if they call Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina, what we want you to do is to continue telling people that you are making the calls. That is very easy. If you can tell 10 or 20 people, you already have Grace's information and email. So I know I've been collecting a lot of emails, and I have designated certain people already and said, hey, you're good at this. So you know what? You can directly send that information to Grace. Just, full name, email. You ladies here can do the same thing. If Nancy can be the point of contact for, for your group and everyone that wants to help out, you can do the link, or you can also go to Grace, because to me, it's like the fastest. She's really good at getting everyone sign in. And also you can create 2 lists. You can create a list of the woman and the associate men who already know Psychic. If you know Psychic, all you need is full name, email. Grace will get you on immediately. You can start making calls, within the day. If you don't know Psychic and you need a training, ladies, provide a list of that and then set up a training, and Grace is amazing and she will go ahead and train you guys.
And one thing to note real quick is that if you had an account made for Iowa or New Hampshire, we make new accounts for each state. So you will need to have a new account made for South Carolina.
That's good to know. That was one of the questions that we were going to ask. So we would contact you for every state that we will be working in, correct?
Yes, and I may not be like doing every state, but yes, you can absolutely use me as a point of contact. And if I'm not working with that state directly, then I'll pass you along to whoever needs to help you guys.
Okay, great. Mindy Pechnick asks, is there much of an effort to promote Agenda 47 as a standalone reason for voting for President Trump?
So yeah, first off, raise your hand if you guys know what Agenda 47 is, because I want to make sure.
But not everybody, Derek. Please explain.
So at 30,000 feet, it's the president's vision for the country, right? If you go on our website, you can click on Agenda 47. You can see videos that the president, has filmed, and where he talks about certain items, right? And it's everything from education, border security, law enforcement, foreign policy, military. And I think, the answer to how we're promoting Agenda 47 is, obviously the president's speeches, right? Because again, that's his way of messaging, his agenda, right? We have surrogates, right? You'll see people who go out and speak for the president, about issues that matter to the American people, right? And, you know, and then obviously, you know, in our campaign, right, in general, right, like when we know that all of those issues matter to the country because they're important, right? And we know which of those issues matter to, you know, the group that we're speaking to, right? And so we just make sure that we know, hey, like if we're in a group full of veterans, I mean, I think the president's, you know, message on I was willing to fire bad VA employees really matters to people, especially when they or friends of theirs have been waiting for care or have been mistreated by a VA employee, right? I mean, VA accountability was huge. And, you know, I mean, everybody remembers under the Obama administration that waitlist scandal where, you know, people were making fake wait lists to, you know, hidden wait lists to hide the fact that, you know, our people who served us were not getting the care that they were supposed to get in a timely manner. And so, you know, again, we message Agenda 47, right, by understanding who our audience is when we're speaking, right? And then we can point out the things in Agenda 47, right, that matter. And while we may not be saying Agenda 47, right, it's music to a veteran's ears to know that the president values people who've served the country, or that the president views the, you know, or an active duty members of the military too, right, where the president says, you know, listen, I'm not looking to get us into more wars, right? We shouldn't be getting into wars unless there's an American interest involved because, you know, the blood and treasure of this country is precious.
Wonderful.
Exactly. So is there a concerted effort to reach out to veterans?
Yes, we have a veterans coalition. You know, and again, you haven't seen as much of it yet because we're still, you know, building out how things are going to look and everything. But yes, I mean, South Carolina, for example, is a very veterans friendly, you know, heavy state, right? So, which is, you know, our big focus now. So yeah, I mean, we do a lot of reaching out to veterans. We do a lot of work with veterans. We do a lot of listening to veterans. You know, veterans actually is a near and dear heart, near and dear issue to my heart because I went to Florida State University, and I'm proud of it for many reasons, but one of them is it's one of the most veteran friendly colleges in the country. You know, it led the way on getting in-state tuition for veterans. You know, that was a big deal. They had a whole veterans program. I used to volunteer at the Veterans Center, and some of those people I felt were some of the most amazing people I'd ever met. And we're very humble about, you know, the sacrifices that they made to serve the country. And so, you know, we have a huge, you know, we have big plans for the Veterans Coalition and what we're going to do to engage not just veterans, but also active duty military, you know, and make sure those people understand the president's message is beneficial for them as well.
Okay, so I live in the Inland Empire here in California, and we have Loma Linda VA, and a lot of veterans live in this area. We have one of the largest homeless veterans populations in the United States, unfortunately. So anything that we can do to support those efforts out here, we're there. We're going to help with that, definitely. All right, here's another question. Are there specific news sources that you recommend for balanced reporting on campaign successes and challenges?
So the answer I'd give you on news actually is a little more nuanced. My suggestion is to actually read everything. And I'll tell you why. I watch a lot of MSNBC, and not because I think that they you know, do a good job fairly reporting the president, right? They don't. But you have to understand what your adversaries think, right?
Yeah.
Like I try to put myself in the shoes of watching obviously what our voters watch, right? But also understanding what a Democratic voter watches, right? Because if I understand the message points that work for them and what they're hearing all day, right, that allows me to better message to people I want to get to vote for us. So I would tell you, everybody here is an intelligent person. You know, watch everything, right? Understand what's actually going on in the country and see through the news, but also understand what's being reported so that you can convince your friends to vote for us.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you for that, Derek. Here's a question, and I'm just going to paraphrase. This is from Mindy, who lives in Oakland, and we know that Oakland is extremely liberal. She's running for state assembly. She wants to know how to reach the Jewish community to get them active.
I mean, you go where people congregate, right? I mean, so you know, my suggestion would be to go find the synagogues in your area and go meet with the rabbis.
Right.
Hey, very good advice. Exactly. All right.
While you and Nancy are preparing your
Mhm.
questions,
Mhm.
you know that many of us, in fact, not most of us in California who are Republicans, were very deflated by the lack of free and fair elections that we've had. I don't think it was just the last cycle. I think it's been going on. This is just my own personal observation. But going forward, we need to have confidence in our vote here in California. How do you suggest, say, the Golden State Republican women can help with this, or getting groups together, getting women and men educated on how to watch our vote and make sure it counts properly?
I would say this, our campaign's doing a lot on that front
Good.
with election integrity, right? Two things. One, win by overwhelming margins, and number two, you know, our election integrity operation, right? And so we're going to have opportunities as things, as we start rolling things out, to be poll watchers and, things like that, right? And take the opportunity, right? If we need poll watchers, the best way to help secure the election is be a poll watcher for us when we're recruiting people.
Mhm.
My mom talks about this a lot because that is a major concern of hers as well, as it is across the country. And she was like, doing whatever you can at your local level, going to your local communities and stuff like that, and addressing and like seeing what the rules are in regards to like how they're voting, whether or not they're using like machines, things of that sort. And so I don't have much background information or knowledge on it, but that's what she's kind of hammered home and like planted that small seed, is just like doing what you can in your own local area and addressing the rules and laws regarding it.
Very good. Very good. Evelyn, were you going to? Evelyn, you're muted. There you go.
I can tell you that in California, there's a organization, it's a nonprofit that has been working on election integrity for many, many decades, and that is Linda Payne's Election Integrity Project California. And they have rolled out a informational meetings, and they're going to be starting, I believe, in Anaheim, or Stanton, I believe it's February 15. That will be the first meeting. And then they're going to be going to Ventura, Shasta County. I will send you ladies the flyer with all the details. And I think that if you connect with Linda Payne from Election Integrity Project California, there's information that you can get and then share with all of your members.
Yeah, Linda's group is very active here, and so that's a really good thing. There, from Deb Baber, she says, I've been following Donald Trump since 1979 when I first moved. It says to New York City. I know she lives on the coast, so I think she means from New York City. Personally, I believe President Trump naming it Agenda 47 was his shot across the bow to the UN Agenda 2030 crowd. That in the United States, we will have Agenda 47, not Agenda 2030. Your thoughts?
Look, I can't really speak to that directly because I don't know the answer to that. I think what I can say is I think the president has been, appropriately critical of the UN. I think, if you look at some of the things, some of the funding to the UN that the president cut when he was in office compared to what Biden restored funding to, it's glaringly obvious that the UN, had some issues that the president very heavily and very righteously weighed in on,
Mm-hmm. Okay, I do have another question here. Nancy, do you have anything that you want to put into to our group, to our speakers?
I just have one question. Do any of you have an insight on Trump's VP pick?
No.
I don't.
President.
No.
President.
Hey, but we hope it's a woman, right? We're at a woman's organization. We hope it's a woman.
No offense
Well,
there.
darn.
Okay, so any bets on who that woman might be?
No, I'm just hoping. No.
We all
Wishful
are.
thinking.
Well,
Yes.
I not to talk about women or men or whatever, but I don't want anybody who's a VP to check any box. I don't want it to be a box checking pick. Okay, I just want the best person who can support him, who can act for him should he be not able to at a certain time. So I think I'm an all of the above person. If you are a person who loves this country and values it the way President Trump does, great, you should be a VP.
All right. So somebody put in Ben Carson's name.
He's been mentioned
right.
before. Yes, he has.
Yes, yes. And he's a delightful person. He came out to Loma Linda to speak.
Did he?
Oh, this was a few years ago, but just a wonderful person.
Yeah, I have one. I have one more quick.
Okay.
All
I
right.
have one more quick one for
We're in our
each of them.
last three, excuse me, I'm sorry, Nancy. We're in our last 3 minutes of our presentation
Yep.
today. Just putting that in there. So we're going to be shutting this down at 10.
Okay.
Okay, this is real quick then. Do you all have your eyes set on something higher in the Republican Party?
Here.
No.
Okay, well, then we'll move that back to Janet then.
All right.
It has been a wonderful hour with the three of you, and everybody who came, I know feels so glad that they joined, this time. And this is such a critical time in our country. If there weren't good people like you standing beside a good person like President Trump, I think I would jump off a cliff. We need no hope. You're our hope. You are our hope. And of course, I'm a believer and I know God is our hope. But he is in this, and I'm just very, very excited. As bad as these times are, I feel very excited because it has given everybody a good look on what has been happening for a long time and we didn't know it. Now we see it. So I'm glad it is out there and we can talk about it. And there is nothing verboten. We can talk about what has gone against this country. So bless each and every one of you for what you do, because you are doing a great service to all of us. This is the wonderful thing about America. You know, we have these elections and they are free, and we are going to make sure they are free elections. And I'm sure now that that's been unmasked, we know. So we're going to be forewarned is forearmed. And this is where we are. But thank you so much from everybody here and all of you who are on this. Spread the word of what you learned today. Tell everybody what these three people told you and educated us and excited and enthused us as the voters. And we just couldn't be happier and more grateful. Was there anything, Karen, that you wanted to say at the end? I'm just going to close with thanks, but I do appreciate. Yes.
Just check your emails for the next Zoom meeting that's planned. It will be Fletcher with Moms for America. You don't want to miss this. And invite all of your moms.
Absolutely. Invite grandmas.
And grandmas.
All right. Thank you all so very much. Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you.
Nancy. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, whole team, Evelyn, Grace, and Derek. It has been a pleasure. And we are very, very grateful for this unique opportunity.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Have a great
America.
day.
USA.
And Sherry, if you can take a picture for history.
I will.
Ah,
Hold on, everybody. I want everybody to smile.
okay, Nancy, get in there.
Okay.
All right. Cheese.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a blessed day, everyone.
Thank you.
You too.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.